Hi everybody. Hi everybody. Oh, I think I've actually got the lighting correct again. A miracle. Hi everybody. I hope this is working this time. I had some problems last week while I was I was in Venice and I couldn't get the live to work properly from my phone. That it preset. So I'm now just hoping that I've got it sorted this time for just a general live that's just open to everybody. Honestly, at this point, I'm not even convinced that it's correct, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. And anybody watching this on follow up, I will put it into the thumbnail, which is the one that's for tonight, and you can watch it on the replay. Also, a reminder that this isn't therapy, it's not coaching, it is literally just, it's not even a workshop, it's just me reading from my book, Uncertainty is Your Superpower, and I read passages from it and I'll open up different topics each week where we can explore things that pretty much happen in daily life. And currently, I am delivering sofa chats from my apartment in Italy because that is where I am just now. Scottish girl, desperately wanting to live in Italy, and I'm currently here for 2 months with a plan to come back more times with a view to getting a visa. So let's just see what happens. I genuinely don't even know if this is working or not, but I am just going to give it a go and see what happens. So if anybody joins, fabulous. We'll just take it from there. And if not, then I'll just read from my book and I'll leave you to leave comments in YouTube's comment section. So we're on chapter 11 now of the book, and it's the pandemic shifts, the beginning of my rise. So let's just settle in and I'll read some passages from the book and then we can dive into something a little bit deeper. There are moments in business where you feel completely untethered, not because you're failing, but because you're growing, and the version of you who knew how to do things no longer fits. That's where I found myself just a few months into running my business. On the surface, things appeared to be fine. I was booking clients, seeing them in my new office space, and I found a rhythm after leaving NHS 24. But underneath, there was a quiet knowing that was already forming. I didn't want to be a traditional hypnotherapist. I didn't want to work with smoking cessation or treat basic phobias. Yes, I was doing good work, meaningful work, but it didn't light me up. I could feel the disconnection because that feeling was familiar to me. I'd had it all my years in corporate trying to find the next big break. How could it be showing up here after everything I'd been through to get here? Honestly, I was sick of myself some days. Why couldn't I just be happy at how far I'd come? Some days I'd sit in my office during the quiet moments and wonder what was next. I'd ask myself why I still felt so unfulfilled. I had no idea how to shift things yet, but the whisper was there. There was something more out there for you. And that's when the world stopped, COVID-19, and when the shutdown of everything in person, all in person services that I had stopped. My rented office space was no longer accessible, and while part of me panicked, another part of me exhaled in relief. The truth is, I'd been feeling the drag of the office. It never became the hub that I imagined, and paying for a space every week had started to weigh me down. Interestingly, you might recall what I told my mentor at the beginning of that year. I had said it out loud that I wanted to have a business entirely online one day, and I wanted location freedom. Be careful what you wish for. Suddenly, there I was with no other option. It was online or nothing. I was half worried and half relieved because, out of nowhere, my dream of working remotely got a sudden shunt forward. I often reflect on this and wonder if I would have achieved my goal of working online had the pandemic not forced the world online. I suppose I'll never know. But I am happy with how things turned out for me. Initially, clients were hesitant because online hypnotherapy sessions weren't the norm back then. Sure, people did them, but for me, new in the game, it was all face to face up until this point. Some people resisted the change and some walked away, but I knew this was the beginning of something, even if I didn't know what. Throughout the months and what turned into years, I leaned into learning. I read, researched, and gathered as much information as I could about coaching models, therapy frameworks, hypnotherapy tools and skills, and mindset work. The list was completely endless. I also went full on in personal development as if my life depended on it. I consumed books at a rapid rate. I stayed curious and slowly I began to trust myself more and more, not just as a hypnotherapist, but as a guide, a space holder, a light shining in the dark. I learned a great deal from this phase, and it had a profoundly positive impact on my lifestyle as I gained even more insight into routines, health, and habits. But let's not kid a kidder. Financially, it was rocky. I'd never had to ask the government for help before, but this was my turn and I took it. It wasn't much, but it massively helped in those early days when the world was adjusting to the changes caused by the pandemic. I've highlighted people in this book that have been there for me in this journey, and it's time to add another. She was my case handler for financial support. I was terrified and I felt ashamed, but she made the experience a positive one. I know not everyone's experience is like that. It's hard enough to accept help without it coming with judgment. Therefore, I will be eternally grateful to her for her compassion and support. That financial support saved me from drowning. In business, I kept showing up. I offered free live sessions on social media, tried new things, and tested offers. I also studied what others were doing, not to copy, but to gain a deeper understanding of business and marketing. People really don't realise the importance of understanding marketing when you start a business. If you don't do it well, you'll be the best kept secret in your industry. Not the ideal situation when you have bills to pay and a life to live. I watched, learned, and started investing not only my time but also my money in learning and growing. I heavily invested. I hired my first big coach. She taught me about the value of what I do and how I could better package my services. I always knew the power of the work that I did and was comfortable charging based on results rather than time. She supported me through the journey, developing new programs that aligned with my goals. She helped me create a more immersive experience for my clients, full access to me during our time together in a container of support. And that was especially a big win for my clients because they loved the ongoing support and the continuity between sessions. That change, the change to a new way of doing business wasn't instant, if only, but it was the early days and planted seeds, and over time, those seeds became roots. My offers evolved, the way I spoke evolved, the way I showed up online evolved as well. Mostly it was that my confidence in my own work and my method that grew. I'll never forget my first client who signed up for my first ever fully immersive program. She joined one of my webinars, and after starting my program, she immersed herself in the work over 3 months and decided to continue working together for a year. She was growing so much and she wanted to make significant changes: her career, education, relationships, anxiety, self esteem. You'll meet Jen later in the book and you'll read about the life she created for herself. From my client work, I started to notice some repeating things. Clients feared the unknown. They were scared to let go of the familiar, scared to believe their life could be better and bigger. Once they learned to make sense of their past, the old narratives, and to calm their nervous system, they were able to shift their beliefs and everything changed for them. They reclaimed their power. They began to feel empowered, in control, and in a state of flow simultaneously. Life was moving with more ease because the resistance was gone. The fear had turned into curiosity, and the life they had never known was possible was starting to come alive. The most obvious shift was their energy. They became a magnet for the things they wanted: opportunities, love, and abundance. That's when I truly realised I wasn't just helping people fix problems, I was helping them become someone new, an evolved version of themselves. And for me, it was a daily grind to move the business forward. I was trying to grow too fast, a big mistake. In a short period, I built 2 websites and had another one built for me. I was obsessed over branding, colours, fonts. I took no days off. But here's the truth: I wasn't always productive. I wrestled with social media, burnout, comparison, and moments of wanting to give it all up, lots of them. All you crave is support. All you crave is support or words of encouragement, but instead you hear your inner critic. Maybe just get a job. No, I knew I couldn't. I'd come too far, I'd bet on myself, and the clients that I worked with reminded me daily that I had to keep going. Their kind words, their feedback, their desires to keep working with me. So, no, I couldn't give up just because it was hard for me. I had a bigger mission to focus on, so I stopped tolerating the external noise and I applied some discipline to remove the distractions. It's not always easy to do this, but it is necessary to make progress. It was time to establish healthy boundaries and protect my time. I was determined to build something meaningful, and for that reason, it consumed me at times. There were definitely periods when I forgot to live. My days blurred into nights, and I was exhausted, isolated, often overwhelmed. I'd usually find myself staring into space, wondering what I was doing with my life. But underneath it all, I was definitely learning, growing, and refining every aspect of my business. I was up leveling, and thankfully, by the grace of God, I was also born with tenacity and bucket loads. That's what kept me going in the midst of the madness. Truthfully, though, I didn't always feel brave. However, I still showed up, usually stressed out about money, social media, visibility, networking, and most of all, my lack of clarity on my direction. I'd watched others appear to fly ahead while I felt like I was lagging, still trying to figure things out, constantly compared myself to my peers. It was soul crushing. I tried everything though, because I was committed to this new path, and even if the project I was attempting didn't work, it certainly helped me grow. Whatever idea I was trying, I eventually learned to view it as an experiment, took the pressure off having to work first time, and that mindset shift was a game changer for me, but it still took several years to master. Before that, there was blind panic when things didn't go to plan. The thing is, the pandemic didn't just shift my business model, it shifted me, cracked open the shell of what I thought I had to be, and freed me to build a business on my terms. 2020 marked the beginning of my true alignment. I'd stepped into a new phase, working with clients in new ways and on more profound transformations, creating powerful offers and attracting more aligned clients. I realised I wasn't just surviving anymore. I often refer to living a life without limits, and I guess that's what I was happening for me here. I was building a business and my life on my terms. I was building a business, yeah. I was actively removing any limitations to my goals, and I can't imagine living any other way now. As things began to align, and you can keep moving forward even with a blindfold on, the possibilities are endless. You begin to rise just like I did as I moved into the next phase of my journey. And that's the end of the chapter. The whisper. Sometimes the universe doesn't break your plans, it breaks you open to bigger ones. The shift you fear might be the very one that sets you free. So I really like this chapter because it actually, the whole part about, oh, don't know what's going on with my hair today, it's a bit crazy. And the whole part about the pandemic was scary because the pandemic started like 3 months after I started a business. But as I've said in the book, sometimes it's like the worst of times turn out to be the best of times because the way that the pandemic happened and what it did was it created this huge amount of space that I was able to dive much, much deeper into personal development, habits, productivity, deepen my knowledge in my own areas of expertise with the hypnotherapy. It allowed me to express myself multiple times in different ways in my business so that I could show up and find out what worked and what resonated and what didn't. So I sometimes think I haven't gone that fast, but when I look at how much things have evolved over the years, I think having the time in the pandemic, as much as it was challenging, it freed me up to do put a lot of focus behind what I really wanted to work on. I guess my question to yourselves is, now that we're several years out of the pandemic, what does your life look now? What does it look like? What was your learnings from it? Were there any learnings from it? Are you operating from a different perspective now? Different vibration, different systems, different outlook in life? I'm curious because we don't really talk about it that much now, and gladly so because it was so big at the time. But yeah, it would be an interesting one to find out where other people's lives have been over the years since the pandemic. I also want to mention a little bit about what I started to identify when I worked with clients. They feared the unknown, scared to let go of the familiar, and also were scared to believe their life could be better or bigger or both. So I want to ask you a little bit about your own life and how you cope or how you move forward in the unknown. Can you move forward, or do you get paralyzed with anxiety? Does it keep you stuck? Does it keep you exactly where you've always been? Or are you able to move forward and take a chance on yourself? I'm curious where you sit on that scale. And with the familiar, it's a natural state that we like the familiar, even if the familiar isn't good for us. It's part of who we are. It's how our bodies are designed. We're set up for safety. So if we're doing things that stretches out our comfort zone, our body can respond often, fight, flight, or freeze. And it might be the case that because it's not familiar, we want to reject it. But just because it's not familiar doesn't mean it's not right for you. It's down to you to know how to take those actions, calming your nervous system, trusting that you will know what to do when the time comes. But a lot of people don't, and it builds up as stress, anxiety, overwhelm, worry, self doubt, procrastination, self sabotage, all of the above. And if you can learn to harness these things, do that deeper work on yourself, or maybe it's set out routines, healthy habits, make positive shifts every day, then you will be able to take those steps forward. And what happens when you do is you start to map down in your own memory that you actually are capable of things, which means the next time you go and do something, it gets easier because you've already proved that you have the capacity to do hard things. I talk about that a lot in the other chapters. Every time I think, God, can I keep going? Or like when I wanted to travel abroad, for example, I remember I travelled a lot alone, but I've always been going to someone, a friend or whatever. So the travel itself was never the challenge. It was, can I stay in a foreign country for long periods of time? You know, and I started off with smaller things. So I started off with 1 week in Rome. Didn't matter if I didn't have a community, it was a week. It was I could cope, I was doing pet sitting. Then the next one was 2 months in England. So yes, it wasn't Scotland, but it was only England. So, less barriers to making it work, easier to build a community, networking, business events, etc. And I'm very blessed that I kept in touch with a lot of those people. So when I return in June this year, I will be spending several months back in Oxford. There'll be more to come in that and further conversations. But it was through that 2 months of being away that I realised I had what it took to go further afield for longer. So then my next trip was 1 month to Italy, and that was in spring last year. And then from then I was able to do 2 months in autumn, back again now in the spring, early summer for 2 months. And the goal is to get a visa because now each time I've came here, it's got more and more felt like home. So taking that analogy of feeling like home, it's that safety that we get because we realise that the risk is not there now. My body has settled to that feeling of safety. And that's all that's really happening when you want to take a risk. The more you do something, you repeat it, you continue to stretch yourself a little bit further, then it gets a lot easier. So have a wee think about that and maybe where you're keeping yourself stuck through self-sabotage, narratives you're telling yourself, old belief systems, fears, anxiety, worries. I wonder if you didn't have any of those things, if you asked yourself, what is it I'd really do if I had the courage to do it? Like, what's the thing that I would love to go after? What's the dream that I'm not fulfilling? Because there'll be something untapped potential in there. I'm certain of it that you could reach if you really wanted to, but you have to go back and start looking at where you're keeping yourself stuck. So is it old stories, childhood stuff? Is it procrastination? Is it anxiety? Is it overwhelm? There'll be something in there that's all related to you working on yourself. And that's the thing about the book. I don't tell you what to do. I wouldn't tell you what to do in this channel either, but I'll offer a mirror, which is through the book and through these conversations, because if you can pause and look at yourself, then you will find the ways that you can improve, shift, change, heal, grow, that will then open up the doors, the opportunities to the careers, the jobs, the abundance, the love, the travel, whatever it is that you want. Now, I'm doing it for myself, I'm living proof, but I've also got lots of clients that are doing some wild stuff now that they never believed was possible, but it was always a dream, because they were able to stop and look at themselves long enough and say, I don't like where I'm at, or I don't like how my life is. So I'm prepared to look inward and figure out, where am I keeping myself stuck? Am I staying in the wrong relationships? Am I doubting that I deserve better? So I'm staying where I am because this is what I think is the best I can get. Am I unable to set boundaries? Am I unable to ask for my needs to be met? Am I hiding in other people's stories because I'm scared to look at my own? I've done all of that work. This is how I know. And I'd love it if you were to look in the mirror, whether it's literally or whether it's writing it in a journal, whether it's reading this book and allowing it to open up your mind as you travel along. It's got reflection questions and a whisper in every chapter. And there'll be something in there that you see yourself in and you'll think, yep, this is where I'm holding myself back, or yes, this is something that I would like to do. My dream is my dream. You have your own dreams. I don't have children. I'm not married. So for me, in my late 40s, traveling to another country, wanting to make a home here, changed all my career, all my life, cleaned up my act. It was pretty wild. We've done those chapters, but if you're interested, it's in the book. Very chaotic, substances, partying, wild lifestyle, childhood trauma, oh, you name it. I mean, I wasn't always like this. But the person that I was always trying to come out, and that was why I was in internal conflict for a long time. But when I stopped and I looked in the mirror and I realised I don't like who I'm becoming here, and I don't like this life that I've got or this situation, I'm going to have to make a start. And that start is what I did. And I actually was reflecting on it tonight because it's been 10 years since the moment that I did it. And honestly, the amount that I've accomplished in 10 years, it's scary, because I just set the intention to do the inner work, sort myself out, move forward, and not be frightened of the unfamiliar, to learn how to make uncertainty my superpower and to carve out a life that is right for me. And I know for a fact out there, you'll be thinking the same thing. What is it I really want? What is it that's keeping me stuck? Where am I not happy? Where could I be happier? Sometimes it's not about being unhappy, but it's also not, sometimes it's about being passive and thinking, oh, well, better the devil you know. Sometimes that might be the case, but, if you took one little step out your comfort zone, I wonder what else could be possible out there for you. So these are the things that I'll leave you with tonight. Feel free to drop a comment into the YouTube comments when I put this video up. And I don't know what happened with the live stream thing again tonight. Something else is not working on the laptop in the way that I thought. These things are sent to testers, but honestly, I have ran out of steam for the evening to figure out the tech. That's a tomorrow job. So I'll love you and leave you tonight. Please follow me, supports me on the channel, but also lets you chat in the chat box if you want to speak, and drop me a comment into the YouTube comments and let me know if you've picked it up on the replay, because it helps push out the video for other people to find. So that's all. Time for me to go, and I will see you same place, same time, because I'll still be here in beautiful Monopoly for another 3 weeks. In fact, no, I'll have 2 more sofa chats because I leave on the Monday. Yeah, 3 weeks yesterday. So then in 3 weeks' time, it'll be back onto my mum's sofa in Glasgow before I head to Oxford. So there we are. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.